Hi everyone, I'm Danilo. I'm working in Alperia as head of the Digital Lab, which is a unit that has the task of taking care of POCs and innovation, digital innovation within the company. And today we are speaking a little bit about the world of e-mobility, and we are having a look at the protocols of the e-mobility, just to give you a little bit an idea of what's behind the curtains. So first, I'm actually representing here Neogy. The e-mobility efforts of the Alperia company is brought on by Neogy, which is a company that was founded in 2019. It is a joint venture between Alperia and Dolomiti Energia in Trentino. Both companies had already efforts in the field of e-mobility before this date, and they decided to join the efforts in order to go and work at national scale. Last year, or actually this year, Neogy was also mentioned above the 100 Eccellenze Italiane in order, because of their contribution to the development of the e-mobility in Italy. The company is now the third operator in Italy. It has 600 plus charging stations. Most of them are public. We also sell the home ones, the private home ones that you can get through the company. And the company is also the founder of Motus E, an Italian association that is devoted to fostering the e-mobility. As we can see from this graph, actually our region is very good, very well positioned in the field of electromobility, both as number of charging stations and as number of electric vehicles that are sold in the region. And this puts us at the same level as areas that we find in Northern Europe. So it's a very, very good positioning and an example at national level. Let's start now to dive a little bit in the chain that allows the mobility to work. So we introduce some terms. Of course, we know the electric vehicle. The electric vehicles connect to the charging station, the EVSE, that is managed by the CPO. So the CPO is the company that operates the charging network, let's say so. Behind the CPO, we have the EMPs. The EMPs are the guys having the customers, basically, the customers that want to charge their cars on the CPO's infrastructure. At the beginning, these two entities were the same, but now they have different, let's say, meaning. So Neogy is actually both a CPO and an EMP. And behind all these, of course, there is the DSO, which is the company that is distributing the electricity, for example, Edina, and the energy supplier, so people who are actually selling the energy that then it's used on the charging units to charge the car. The field of roaming is also very interesting and very important in the field of electromobility, because customers don't want to be, let's say, limited in the places where they charge their cars. So a lot of efforts were done throughout the years in order to find a way to interconnect different CPOs and different EMPs, so that you, as a user, you have your own car, your card, and you can use your car to charge not only in South Tyrol, you can go abroad, you can go everywhere, and you just deal with actually your EMP. In this sense, Neogy is part of Abject, which is one of the biggest roaming hubs in the world. And we find the collaboration with Abject very fruitful, because we get a lot of customers actually from abroad coming here to charge on our infrastructure. And the platform also allows us to deal very well with contractual framing and billing. So it makes it easy for us to attract customers, and as well as to let our guests, our customers, charge the car abroad. This is a slide that we use as a base for, let's say, explaining the different protocols that we find in the chain. So we already introduced the terms, and now we start to see what happens between the car and the charging stations. So at this level, we have basically two protocols. The first protocol, it's the standard that applies to the transfer of power. So it's the standard that dictates how the power is transferred between the car and the charging unit. So, for example, also in DC charging units, the car can, let's say, modulate, yes, the power charge, so that it gets what it actually needs or wants, and the charging unit answers the way the car expects. On the other way, I brought it also another protocol which is very interesting, which is the 15118, because these protocols, it's actually called plug and charge, because the idea behind the protocol is that the car should be able to authenticate and authorize itself. So nowadays, most users have their cards, an RFID card that you use to charge your car. But the idea is that you can just plug in the car, and the car knows what contract you have and talks directly to the charging unit, so that you don't have to take care about the car. Basically, you can throw away your car because your car takes care of this part. And this is a very, let's say, innovative protocol that is disruptive in a way that it changes the way we actually do the charging nowadays. And it also enables for the so-called vehicle to grid, where the cars can actually interact with the electric grid in order to exchange power. Behind the charging unit, we have the dialogue between the charging unit and the CPO. So let's say the central software that CPO use to check to operate their charging infrastructure. So, for example, Neogy has their own system, a CPO, that controls these 600 plus units. At this level, we find the OCPP protocol, which is the protocol that allows the central unit, the central system to dialogue with the units, with the charging units on the territory. For example, from the central system, you can start a charge, you can stop a charging section, and the charging unit, on the other hand, can communicate to the central system all the information about the charge, and can also, let's say, ask for permission. So when you pass your card, actually the charging unit asks to the center, can this guy charge or not? And then the charging unit applies the logic and answers back, yes, start, or no, don't. If we look back, we get to a field that is a little bit more complex, which is actually the field of roaming, we can say, so of interoperability between the CPO and the MPs. And at this level, we actually find several protocols. There is not yet a full consensus about a protocol that works for everybody. And of course, the protocols basically are equivalent in some sense, but why are there different protocols? Because there are different roaming hubs. So every roaming hub or every group of companies built their own standards. So here we see two examples. The second example, for example, the Open Intercharge Protocol is the one that Object uses, so the one that Neogy as well uses. We also find other protocols that are, for example, developed by you can see here some French names in the auto industry. They have Girev, so people dialing with Girev hub use EMI protocol. And at the end, we also have the OCPI protocol, which is interesting because now it's managed by the EV Roaming Foundation. It's open, and is actually the only one of these four which is JSON-based, so it's a little bit more friendly in a way, and could be used also to, let's say, map the status of the charging units, which we'll come back later to. On the last, let's say, part, I also brought an example of the dialogue with the DSO. The DSO is the company that distributes the energy. And here, I didn't know, I found out about this during the research. There is a protocol which, let's say, has the objective to allow a communication between the charging units and the DSO, so that there can be a communication about the forecast of charge on the electro grid, so that the cars and the units can adapt to it. So that's very interesting, and I think it will be important as more and more charging units go on the network, because these charging stations, they are very high power equipments and they can generate problems on the electric grid. If you're interested in further reading about the protocols, I left here some links. The second one is a study by Dutch university that compares in detail all these protocols. Let's now come to the Data Hub. So Neogy has been collaborating with the Open Data Hub team for quite some time now. We started at the beginning to discuss with the team about sharing the data of the charging stations. We started dialogue with the Open Data Hub team and other actors in the field of electromobility. So Neogy was one of the first, but then others added, other people that have infrastructure. And we defined a common schema for the exchange of information that is now in use. And as I was saying earlier, we could start to think about using a standard protocol for this kind of information, so that can be a development in this sense. We're participating in the coordination meetings, and nowadays this interface has been up for some years, I would say now, and it's working flawlessly since then. So this allows the Open Data Hub to collect the status of the charging station. Is it available? Is it not available? From several operators. So the benefits that we see is making the availability of the status information even wider. So of course, as a CPO, you are interested to attract people to charge on your stations and to let people know if they are occupied, so that people don't have to go there and be disappointed because they find a connector that is not available to them. So, of course, attracting potential customers. As we said earlier, we are a touristic destination, so this is always very interesting for us. And at the end of the day, the fact that we share information with the Open Data Hub is perfectly aligned with Neogy's goal, which at the end is to promote the electromobility here and at national level. So my presentation is over, and I thank you for your attention.